Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the what if. Chapter 1. It was at the tender age of 9 that Naruto felt his chakra change. Change being an expressive term, of course. Chakra was far more complicated to explain. In simpler terms, chakra offered strange properties that most civilians would likely never experience, ones that calmed and soothed you, stripping your body of most if not all physical weight. That could sometimes be avoided with rigorous training, but some were just born with it, like he. The problem was the endless desire his chakra had to change into something more. At first it had started as a minor cold, switching between coughs, shivers and uncontrollable wastes of half-digested ramen. It wasn't long before it had started getting worse, making him consider going to the Hokage directly about his illness. Sickness was a rarity for him overall, yet this had nearly crippled him. Then, after days of enduring, the symptoms just vanished from one day to another. It wasn't long before he started feeling like he could communicate with every living thing around him. Trees, grass, anything holding life and possessing a proper connection to the ground. He didn't know what to make of it at first, but it had increased his pranking success rate by a whopping 30%. Iruka-sensei had never been more miserable. After his improved sense of nature and overall control of chakra, Naruto figured it had been some weird tantrum his network was putting up with. But oh, had he been wrong. Oddities had surfaced in him, the kind that made him feel somewhat nostalgic every time his feet were pressed against the ground. It had gotten to the point that he felt uncomfortable whenever he wasn't near a good patch of soil or a living, breathing tree. At some point, he had even started taking naps under trees much more frequently. He didn't know why he did it, it just felt natural, in an incredibly inexplicable way. Months after that, he started feeling like every living thing around him was an extension of himself. He could tug on the leaves of a tree just by concentrating, feel the footsteps of people walking on grass, and make unwanted weeds retreat with so much as a look of contempt. It was a new and exciting quirk almost every day. One morning, Naruto had woken up to see his eyes, normally violet, even more intense and vivid. He was accustomed to seeing them that color, but now they were like freshly cut diamonds, imposing and sharp. He consoled himself with the fact that somehow, thanks to such a change, he felt even more connected with nature. In class, he took a break from acting out. He wasn't even pestering Sasuke for spars anymore. Instead he slept or at least acted like he did, and played with a few bulbs he had borrowed from a gardening shop near his shanty apartment. He used most of his time trying to make them sprout and grow, but it proved to be a much more difficult process than originally anticipated. After a couple weeks of struggling, he finally made them sprout with his mind's eye. After they had grown to reasonable dimensions, he planted them. Overjoyed was an understatement of how he had felt then. At the time, however, Naruto didn't know that a curse had sprouted at the same time his abilities had. Nor would anybody else until it was far too late. Now, as he wandered the same park that had served as his grounds to improve his abilities, Naruto ran across the field of green pasture with his eyes closed to test just how deep his sensing went. He ran in between and over sleeping adults, across children that were giggling and playing, and all without bumping against anyone. He stopped his little feet and opened his pair of lilacs, staring at what seemed to be a young girl with indigo hair and delicate-looking fair skin. He ran his way toward her and saw that she was crying under the same tree he usually used for naps. His eyes inspected her for injuries, but she held none. Finally, he found the culprit of her tears. Before her whimpering, kneeling figure, stood a pair of stomped variegated tulips. He scowled seeing this, for they were the very first and same flowers he had bloomed with his strange abilities. "Are you crying because they stomped the tulips?" Naruto asked. The girl, feeble her composure and hoarse was her voice, nodded and spoke. "Why yes, I have been coming over every evening to water them for the past 2 weeks. I wanted to take them to show and tell after they had matured enough, but somebody was mean to them and squished them. They're broken beyond repair now." She was the one watering them. He had wondered why the flowers were growing at an unusual pace ever since he planted them. "Show and tell. By any chance, do you mean the one tomorrow in the academy?" The girl nodded once. "Yes, But I won't be able to show anything anymore. Humming, Naruto sat next to the girl and stared at the decimated flowers. True, these flowers would no longer breathe, even his uncanny abilities would be unable to fix something of such a caliber. He turned to her and saw her sadness materialize with whimpers and sniffles. He sighed and stood back up. You must be in my class if you're having show and tell. Yosh, I'll bring you some tulips to class tomorrow. Some even bigger than these, so look forward to 'em. Bye. After another minute of crying, Hinata looked over her shoulder and saw nobody there. That voice, she tinkered with the thought. Was that? No, that's impossible. After much hassle, Naruto finally managed to get a couple of variegated tulip bulbs. But since he had been running around for the better part of the evening, his exhaustion quickly became too much to handle. He decided to sleep it off and make the bulbs sprout the next day first thing in the morning. Naruto had underestimated just how tired he was, however, and had unsurprisingly ended up oversleeping. After a slurp from one of his random juice boxes, he rushed out of his apartment and paved way toward school. As he turned a corner, he patted his pocket to reassure himself that the bulbs were coming along with. Jumping over the academy's gate with a simple discharge of chakra, Naruto trekked on with all the speed his blasted short legs were capable of offering. After he flipped his way in through a window, he pressed on toward his classroom. Once reaching the appropriate hallway, the sliding door came into view and he wasted no time heading for it. He shot the door open and stepped in, grinning from one side of his face to the other. Safe. All annoyed eyes came to rest on the blonde, though none more annoyed than Iruka. You're 40 minutes late and your shorts are unbuttoned. Exactly how are you safe, Naruto? Naruto fixed up his shorts and puffed his chest. He pointed at the girl shyly standing next to Iruka. Because I wanted to get here before that girl was done with her show and tell. Look, he shoved his hand forward and opened it to reveal the pair of bulbs inside. I told you I would bring you tulips, right? Here they are. Naruto. Iruka's eyes resembled those of a parent seeing his child doing something foolish. I may not be much of a gardener, but those are definitely bulbs. I think. The concurring laughter made Naruto's cheeks rosy, but he merely stepped closer to Iruka with his arms still outstretched. I know they're bulbs, Iruka-sensei. But this is also my show and tell project, one that involves this girl too. I was gonna use something else, but this works fine. Oh, really now? Iruka inquired with some snark. So you've made a friend, Naruto? Well, something like that. He portrayed the bulbs before the girl's eyes, unaware that her cheeks were growing redder by the second. Alright, now look at this, Iruka-sensei. Eyes widened, chairs were flipped and gasps were heard as Naruto lifted one of his hands and started shoving chakra into the bulbs, forcing them to grow stems, ovules and petals. The latter parts stretched out magnificently until they could grow no more. The ovules, circular in shape, grew its separate anthers, and the stems were thin but in no way imperfect. Done, he claimed, its color's a perfect copy of his own eyes. He exhaled and relaxed his posture. Smiling, his eyes peeked at Iruka in search of praise, and saw that instead of amazement or anything around that venue, Iruka was looking at him with shock and worry. Turning towards his classmates, he saw that they too were staring at him with more denial than surprise. Even the emotionless Sasuke was staring at him with broad, boggled eyes and with his mouth slightly agape. Naruto scrunched up his small face in confusion and muttered the only logical word in that situation. What? Chapter 2. Tanzaku Town. Tsunade was known for various things. The unwavering courage and strength she showed during the war, the beyond impressive bosom bestowed on her, and her hideous, seriously rotten luck. The latter of which she honestly couldn't stress enough. She suspected such bad luck was what gave fruit to the 3 greatest mistakes in her life. At the naive age of 18, Tsunade gave birth to the child of a man she cherished deeply, but knew could never pull off living like a proper father. Mistake number 1. She cared little, however, for she loved sweet little Minato more than her very life. He was the only thing she had done right. He was her support, her ray of personal sunshine and the little bundle responsible for single-handedly ridding her of any and all vices. Yes, her love for him was that grand. It's possibly why she hesitated when he said he wanted to become a ninja, not to mention the Hokage. But after several arguments, she gave him both her cursed necklace and blessing to become a ninja. Mistake number 2. Naturally, the little pipsqueak proved himself to be as prodigious as two of the greatest Senju, Tobirama and Hashirama. He only garnered even more fame as the Yellow Flash during the war, the fastest shinobi to ever live, they still say. However, before any of that, she changed his surname to Namikaze in fear that he would be targeted by the enemies of her clan. Mistake number 3. After the war was over, she was confident her young man had finally gained the respite he so charitably deserved. He had earned the title of Hokage, gained a beautiful wife she more than approved of, and practically ordered her and Jiraiya to live happily in a vacation that was meant to last forever. But of course, what was life without twists? Minato and his wife perished sacrificing themselves for Konoha, and everything she ever loved died with them. What disgusted her above else was that she could have saved him had she been there, at his side, like she should have been from beginning to end. But she had been naive, too trusting. She had been blinded by her own expectations that Minato, a Senju, could hold his own even against all 9 of the legendary Bija. From what she heard, he actually did hold his own against the Kyokbai, the strongest of the Bija. They say his ferocity in that battle was equal to that of Uchiha Madara, and that his will to protect had been just as powerful as his grandfather's. Unfortunately, that will to protect had been what ended his life in the end. It wasn't long before she found out Minato and his wife died protecting not just the village, but also their newborn, Uzumaki Naruto. For the past few years Tsunade had lived blaming Minato for her suffering, for leaving her to grieve his death. Perhaps this had been illogical, but no mother should ever live to bury her own son. And not until she realized she had been mourning hypocritically because she would have done the same for him did she finally understand how foolish she had been for scorning him at all. Of course Minato would rather die than live to see his firstborn perish. He was his mother's son, after all. But even after realizing this, Tsunade couldn't help feel somewhat grudgeful when thinking of little Naruto, even if his innocence was practically infinite. But like her spite for Minato, she had grown out of it with the passage of time. Once in a while, she would receive pictures of him from the shinobi under Jiraiya's payroll. He was 9 now, and he was the most adorable little thing she had ever laid eyes on. Still, she dared not go to him for various reasons. She was scared he would hate her for leaving him alone in Konoha, and while Jiraiya assured her he had never been hurt because of his Jincha Riki status, she feared he would hold a grudge against her for leaving him alone for 9 years. Her heart could not handle the hatred of a child so identical to Minato. However, she would be damned if something so superficial would stop her from taking care of her grandchild, even if she wasn't yet ready to deal with the responsibility. She was the strongest kunoichi in the world, damn it. She knew she'd be ready eventually. Which is why, after many years of serving as a nomad gambling her fortune away in an effort to fill the void left by Minato, she was meeting Jiraiya in a bar she enjoyed frequenting for the first time in years to discuss Naruto's condition. "You're one hard lass to locate, Tsunade." Sitting on a creaky stool Tsunade swore she would destroy before leaving the bar, her chocolate eyes found the tallest man she had ever met. "Jiraiya, what took you so long?" "Forgive me," he uncharacteristically apologized. "But the map you sent me had 5 different encryption languages, 3 of which no record exist and another that bases around a tongue that was used millenniums before the Rika Dusennin's time. I can tell you put some serious thought into it. Fortunately, I didn't need to waste a whole week trying to translate it all." Tsunade's left brow came up. "Oh. Then how is it that you found me?" "Shizune told me where you were," Jiraiya cackled seeing Tsunade's cheekbone twitching in annoyance. "She's been secretly sending me your location ever since we parted ways years back. Don't hold it against her, though. All she's been doing is more for your sake than mine, seeing as I'm the only one who can get you out of any pickle. What with you diligently ignoring the existence of Konoha and all." Tsunade sighed hearing this and slumped on the bar's counter. "I should have known that little brat was up to something. She kept coming back to the apartment with a new bottle of sake almost every day. The guilt must have been eating her." Jiraiya raised his hand and ordered a drink from the man ringing the floor. "Why did you take her with you again?" "I told you, she's the niece of a good friend that died in a mission," muttered Tsunade. "Besides, she's a talented medic and God knows the world needs more of those." She sniffed as the thought threatened to fill her with sadness. So, on to what we're here for. How's my little blonde doing? Must I poison Konoha's water supply to get him out of that hellhole? Did you know a few milligrams of certain elements can kill an entire human population via waterholes? Jiraiya knew Tsunade was joking. Still, as he sipped from his newly arrived drink, he worried she would truly go through with her threat should he tell her what he knew. Tsunade, I need you to keep calm with what I'm about to tell you, okay? A chill crawled down Tsunade's spine. The fact that she knew the exact composition of the chemical drawing that reaction from her did little to calm her worry. Jiraiya, you have 5 seconds to keep talking. The darkness in her voice brought goosebumps to Jiraiya's arms. He had only heard such a deathly tone from Tsunade one time before, and he nearly died then. Promise me you'll keep calm. I am calm. The wood on the counter before them splintered under the sheer pressure, the girth of Tsunade's massive chakra. Her eyes turned to Jiraiya with moist already over them. Please, for the love of what you consider precious, tell me he's not. The few clients in the establishment started making their way out. Others that stayed began speaking amongst each other, having never seen visible chakra before. The bar attendant shakily neared them from his station, his face clammy and lacking any solid color. Is everything all right, ma'am, sir? Jiraiya suppressed a sigh hearing her plea. All this time, and Tsunade still didn't understand that she was what he considered most precious. We're fine, sorry for the mess. I'll be held responsible for any further damage. Here, my account number, take what you need. Seeing the young man waltz back hurriedly with the offered digits in hand, Jiraiya addressed Tsunade carefully. The little troublemaker's fine, he's not harmed or anything of the sort. It's just, he groaned and downed his drink in consecutive gulps to gain some false courage. Well, he's kinda being detained in the deepest pits of Anbu headquarters. That heartless, old bastard. The aura around the only female Sannin didn't change, though that only worried Jiraiya more than had she exploded into curses. It was like sitting next to a ticking time bomb long overdue for detonation. Tell me, why was he put in there to begin with? Jiraiya swallowed deeply as his mind drew up his next words. Take this with a grain of salt, Haim, but according to my informants inside the village, Naruto was seen using Mokuden as a show and tell project. The stool Tsunade was sitting on instantly turned into lumber. Her golden pigtails flailing under the power that is her green chakra, she turned and headed in the opposite direction, her heels clicking and scratching the boards under them. Ignoring the door 5 feet across from her, she made her own with a single chakra-enhanced fist. Tsunade. Jiraiya went after her and followed after the seething Sannin a wise 3 feet away. Oi! Calm down will ya? Where are you even going? A growl crawled its way out of Tsunade's throat hearing such a foolish question. I'm going for my grandson. Where the hell else? Tsunade-sama. Shizune carefully landed behind Tsunade with Taunton in her arms. She too wisely kept her pace parallel to Jiraiya. I felt a giant tremor all the way from the hotel. What's going on? Jiraiya should have known this would be the outcome. Look, the political repercussions of you going in and attacking the Hokage's personal guard would be like putting a stamped saying S-class Nukenon over your own forehead. It would be like telling the enemies of Konoha, a village your grandfather founded, that now is the best time to attack. Besides, even the old man wouldn't be able to go in and out of Anbu headquarters without losing an arm and a leg. Good thing I have 2 of each. Tsunade launched herself over the sapphire walls of the village and headed north, directly and without a doubt toward Konoha. Shizune groaned, but followed nonetheless. We left everything back in the hotel. Jiraiya cursed as he matched Tsunade's trail over the tree branches. I know what you're thinking, Tsunade. But his genes are invaluable to Konoha. They wouldn't so much as hurt him knowing what he carries. I feel the same way as you but. Mid-jump, Tsunade grasped Jiraiya's robes and dragged him over her shoulder. Shizune gasped, Tsunade-sama. Tsunade grinded her fellow Sannin over the surface of the ground for a long quarter-kilometer, until the momentum stopped, coloring and injuring his back with grime and scrapes. She dragged him back up and crashed his much taller figure against a nearby tree, perfectly encrusting him into it. Her eyes brimming in tears, she separated his footing from the ground. Do you, really? Because I don't remember seeing a single tear in your eyes when we buried our son. Minato knew you as a master, but not as a father. I raised him myself without your help, so how could you possibly fathom what it feels like to fear for the life of one's child? It is because Naruto has that bloodline running through his veins that I must go to him. Everyone, including you, see him as a sack of invaluable genes. It is because of that reason that only I can protect him. I see Naruto for what he is, a child. He's not a Senju, he's not an Uzumaki, he's my grandson. And I won't let you, Hiruzen, or the council even put a finger on his blonde locks. I will get him out of there, and not you or Konoha will ever get a shred of his DNA, even if I have to die to ensure it. Jiraiya tilted his head when Tsunade's fist came very close to blowing it off. Seeing as she had given him more than enough time to react, she hadn't intended to kill him. Though the tree behind him was an entirely different story. The blunt truth behind her words filled Jiraiya with remorse. She was right. He remembered teaching Minato as his master, but he didn't remember acting as the kid's father. He saw and protected him like his son, but he never tried to make a connection with him out of his own fear. Fear of being a father, something he wasn't ready to be. Nor did his duty permit it. Not until the boy had turned into a man did he finally take time to be with him, to get to know him. But just like Tsunade, he lost him at the absolute worst of moments. Help me, Jiraiya. Her sudden plea caught the Toad Sage by surprise. He reassessed the woman holding him hostage and no longer saw the imposing figure he was so accustomed to seeing. Before him stood a desperate, broken woman asking for his help. It took him a moment to realize that all this time, Tsunade had been struggling to get those words out. Tsunade Haim, please. Tsunade released him and pressed her forehead against his chest, tears streaming down her chin. Let's not make the same mistakes we made with our son. Hearing her say that was more than enough for Jiraiya to fight the entire world should it prove necessary. Redemption, family, all of it was knocking on his front door. And not even his loyalty for the Leaf would stop him from answering. Forget it, not again. Konoha, Hokage's office. Aside from the outside impression he naturally gave, Sarutobi was not a very patient man. As he made obvious in the last couple of days. When they burst into his office with news of that boy using one of the most powerful bloodlines in history during a show and tell no less, he proved his lack of patience when he acted with more haste than careful coordination. All kidding aside, the boy had not made it halfway to his office without being attempted against by unknown parties 5 times. 2 of those times had not been to kidnap, but to separate his little blonde head from those shoulders. The only reason he made it unscathed was because Kakashi had been part of the Anbu team aiming to secure him. And even when inside his office, Sarutobi doubted the boy had felt anything but safe when over a dozen meat shields courtesy of the Anbu had surrounded him. Now he was heading into an emergency meeting he called into order, with every and all top dogs in Konoha, and by extension, the Land of Fire. Yes, even the daimyo. Old piece of worn rubber. How bad does he want a descendant of the Senju? Did you say something, sir? Nothing, nothing, he assured his assistant, his pace quickening. Tsuki was her name, a little younger than he. She was kind if not a little nosy, though that's why he personally hired her to begin with. After considering several options, Sarutobi had decided to lock the boy in literally the safest place in the Land of Fire, the pits of Anbu headquarters. Where there was an agent in every corner, and over 300 more patrolled with specific regulations. Even Uchiha Itachi would find it difficult to go in and out of that place without losing an arm and a leg. He sneezed and his assistant muttered a barely audible, "Bless you." Perhaps somebody had the same thought. Some may call his actions a little excessive, but he would not take risks when it came to little Naruto's life. The child had suffered enough as it is. He was not ignorant to the way his teachers abused of their power and how the other children constantly used him as a scapegoat for their parents' foolishness. In fact, he recalled threatening some of those parents, if his memory served him well. He reached the double doors holding the meeting room and his assistant grasped the handle, opening it and allowing him to enter. Holding his hands behind him, like a proper political figure, Sarutobi eyed what was Konoha's major players. The Hyuga, the Aburame, the Nara, every clan head in Konoha was sitting around a rectangular, wooden table. And at the head of the table sat the most powerful man in the land of fire besides himself, of course. The daimyo of their esteemed nation, and Konoha's greatest economic benefactor. Pissing him off was like purposely disclosing all secrets Konoha held in its vaults. They would be ruined, basically. Suna was a prime example of what happens when you piss off a daimyo. Sarutobi dutifully took the seat at the remaining head. Daimyo-sama. The old, crook-looking daimyo accepted his greeting with a nod of his head. Hokage-sama. Sarutobi knew the distance separating them was respectful, but tension was stronger, an expected gesture when two men of equal governmental powers sat across from each other. The daimyo looked foolish at first sight and gave the impression that he couldn't even eat on his own, but he knew this man was the king cobra among the den of snakes he helplessly found himself in. He had to be if he was the one who won the royal throne from a family of 8 brothers and 6 sisters. He mustn't be underestimated. Now then, he hardened his voice and tethered his fingers before him. We all know why we're here. No. Inuzuka Sume, the head of the Inuzuka clan, inquired with some of her trademarked sass. The news is the gossip of the whole freakin' village. Everywhere I go, I hear, that boy, having something which had been thought lost forever. How is it even possible that the child has something so invaluable to begin with? Such facts are irrelevant, argued the Hyuga head, Hiyashi. What matters is what we are to do with such a precious mineral. Naruto isn't an object. Shikaku Nara growled to blur his distaste. What we should be worrying about is figuring out how we're going to protect him. According to Kakashi, the kid was attacked 5 times from the academy to here. And it's 2 blocks away, for Kami's sake. Perhaps we should also be worrying about national security, said Aburame Shibi. Why you ask? Because the influence held by the spy network of our enemies is so organized, it took little to mount an assassination attempt 1 hour after it being known what the child has. It is obvious something is fundamentally flawed with our counterespionage division. Choza nodded his agreement. It is too far a coincidence, I agree. Where exactly was Jiraiya-sama in all of this? It's not Jiraiya's fault, Sarutobi quickly intervened. It is no secret our power has dwindled ever since the Kyuubi claimed nearly half of our forces 9 years ago. We have yet to heal from the blow we received that day, and Jiraiya, despite being a Sannin, can only do so much with the distributed forces. Nobody is blaming Jiraiya-sama, Sandaime-sama, Inoichi Yamanaka assured. We are all well aware of our situation. Personally, I believe we should be thinking up ways of securing Naruto's safety at all costs, since we can't leave him in the Anbu's cages forever. He harbors what is arguably one of the most powerful bloodlines in history. Is everybody here only interested in the boy's latent abilities? The daimyo's question in a shinobi-affiliated matter was a rare and precarious thing, but his tone made it clear he expected no disinterest in his words. My father, my grandfather, my entire family owe Shodaime-sama everything. If this child is indeed a descendant of that man, then I have no intention of allowing anybody to treat him as anything less. Yet you have him jailed. Hiyashi awkwardly cleared his throat and addressed the man like he was deserving, with respect. Apologies, daimyo-sama, but it is much more complex than how you entail it. Really? He asked, almost mockingly. The only complex matter I see are the intentions nearly half of you came here with. Tell me, why is it that I feel you all wish to protect the child, but under the banner of your clan? What for? Prestige, honor, power? Because frankly, I doubt any of you would do it out of the kindness of your heart. This is bordering on insult. Danzo carefully pointed out. The daimyo smirked. One shouldn't feel insulted unless some truth lurks behind the accusation, Shimura. A poof of smoke before the Hokage halted all further conversation. Sarutobi tensed, but relaxed seeing a red toad lurking behind the smoke. Kasuke-kun. What news do you bring? Kasuke saluted and adjusted the goggles over his forehead. Sarutobi-sama, I have a high-priority message from Jiraiya-sama. I see. He relaxed back into his chair and gestured for the summon to elaborate. Let us hear it, then. Perhaps he would finally hear some good news. Hi. The cheerfulness the little toad seemed to enjoy using vanished for a moment. Old man, me and Tsunadeheim are above the Hokage monument. Hand over Naruto to us and we won't have to pierce all 5 layers shielding the underground Anbu headquarters and drag him out. You and I both know we are one of the few couples in the world capable of achieving such a task, so please save us the trouble. ... There goes that hope. Danzo instantly stood broad and enraged. What insolence is this? The small toad continued unperturbed. If you hand him over peacefully we can avoid clashing, so we encourage and plead you to comply. Give Kasuke your answer and he will tell me your reply. Sarutobi ripped his robes and revealed the combat armor beneath. Diplomacy was obviously out, he needed to stop them before they did something foolish. Anbu. Kasuke nodded, answer received. Another puff of smoke later, and he was gone. After a few seconds of numbing silence, the entire village felt a tremor that would humble an earthquake's devastating power. Hokage Monument, why are you letting him know we're here? Seeing Kasuke disappear, Jiraiya sat down and brought his hands together. He inhaled and exhaled to keep his body still and nimble. It isn't betrayal if you warn them first. Now be quiet, I have to concentrate to find Naruto's exact location. I don't want to call on Fukasaku-sama and Shima-sama for something so trivial. Tsunade prepared a retort, but settled for pouting and grumbling instead. That's wishful thinking, idiot. Of course it's betrayal. She crossed her arms under her chest and watched over Konoha's blissful sleep. Part of her couldn't believe what they were about to pull off, especially considering what her son did for this village. But those were Minato's ideals, not hers. She wouldn't sacrifice herself for them. The only person she would sacrifice herself for was being held prisoner under the Anbu's authority. Naruto was the last remaining fragment of her son, of her family's essence. She won't allow anybody to sully that still pure and innocent slate. Not with that sick warmonger, Danzo, close enough to manipulate him into a merciless weapon of mass destruction. She would sooner slit Konoha's neck herself than allow them to use Naruto like they did his father. The Senju clan had been more than charitable already. Found him. Jiraiya stood. Kuchio's no jutsu. A giant plume of smoke engulfed Tsunade and he. Below them appeared a giant, magenta-colored frog with black markings on his face and a Sakazuki shield strapped to his back. Ken-san, I need you to jump as high as you can. I'll do my best. I just hope my clumsiness will not surface. Ken sprung upwards and with little restraint, at speeds only a shinobi would be able to hold on. Tsunade wasn't overwhelmed by the sheer force being applied to her body, but she did feel enough stress to drop to a single knee. I'm surprised the Toads will support you in what we're doing. The Toads made an allegiance with Konoha because of me to begin with. Jiraiya sought to communicate back. I discussed my intentions with Gamamura-sama, Tsunade. He said that Naruto may be the child of prophecy. He's the one who will end this world of conflict, not Minato. And he can't do that from the pits of Anbu headquarters. Tsunade nibbled on her lower lip hearing this. Naruto, you're still but a child, and already. She shook her head and rid herself of such thoughts. Do you have the exact location of where he is? Their ascent halting, Jiraiya stood like he wasn't floating hundreds of feet in the air. We're right above him. If we go in from this angle, he pointed at the lawns of the Hokage mansion. We should be able to get to him without injuring as many agents as opposed to going in jutsus blazing. Though, precision-wise, that's up to you, I'll just be following. Good. Tsunade slammed her fist against her palm. As she released her strength of 100 seal, entrails of dark tint painted her forehead and face. They crawled their way down, until even her arms and chest were marked as well. You'd only be getting in my way otherwise. TCH, Jiraiya playfully moped. You only act tough when you start using that overpowered seal of yours. A small cloud of smoke appeared next to him. Oh, Kasuke, what did the old man tell ya? Kasuke seemed underwhelmed by the height as he gave a thumbs up. As you expected, Jiraiya-sama. Hokage-sama has started mobilizing his Anbu. No surprise there. Good work, Kasuke. Dismissed. Once Kasuke proofed away, he addressed Ken next. Oi, Ken, thanks for the help. Ken nodded his massive head. Thank you for picking someone as clumsy as me, Jiraiya Dono. Another plume of smoke below them, and Tsunade started plummeting down at ludicrous speeds with Jiraiya right behind her. She reeled her fist back, unmindful that such an act had accidentally, honest ended up slapping Jiraiya. Chakra pulsed and overwhelmed her small fist, until streaks of green lightning were being left in their trail. The memories of her youth with Minato played bells in her mind, and the pictures of Naruto running away paintbrush in hand only helped enhance that feeling further. Her heart healed another crack remembering the first time she had seen Naruto, his mystic eyes and his golden hair. His feats were so symmetrically aligned to his parents, so alike, Tsunade refused to believe any other life form could come so close to perfection. He was a Senju, just like his father, and just like her. I was the best mother I could be to your father, Naruto. I loved your mother just as much, and I made a mistake holding you responsible for their deaths, even if only for a moment. She bit her lips and drew blood, but the injury healed at the same speed she was moving, nearly instantaneous. I won't let them take a single speck of your blood. Anbu headquarters, lowest floors. It's so empty. Naruto hated this place. Balled into a corner, he dared to peek over his knees just to see the classic metal door. The room was barely big enough for him to lie down and sleep. Below he felt no dirt, no grass, only cold, unforgiving concrete. Under the door, he could make out the lumps of several shadows. This meant his guards had yet to move even once throughout the duration of his 2 days in their custody. It's so cold. Tears sprouted in the corners of his eyes, but that was no longer an enigma. The old man had told him this was for his own safety, that it was necessary, but he no longer knew what to believe. There was no speck of dust in the air, it all ran heavy with the stench of sterilizing liquids. He felt so vulnerable feeling that there was no earth anywhere. He felt sick to his stomach sensing there wasn't a single, natural living thing in the entire building. He was in a cage made out of solid, lifeless concrete. He no longer had the courage to ask to go to the bathroom. Last time he asked, all he received were shouts and curses that fazed him little, but had slowly started chipping down his bravery. All he could do now was suck it up and hold it in. It's so empty. Yet again tears made rivers down his whiskered cheeks. He hugged his knees closer to retain some warmth, but it helped little. Above him dangled a single light bulb in wires too naked to be considered safe, as if hinting at his own sense of vulnerability. It's so cold. I don't want to be here. Please, anyone. An incredibly powerful boom echoed in his ears, one that commanded the attention of the stainless diamonds within his eye sockets. He stared at the door and the power gave out. He heard shouts, words that Iruka-sensei had told him never to use, and explosions of minor degree right after. The light returned in flickers, one so sudden he could barely make out the door. Then silence. ... He whimpered once the power gave yet again, this time for good. His teeth clattering and his eyes breaking into more tears, Naruto felt more miserable now than he ever did in his life. He heard shouts again, this time closer and clearer. He started trembling and held the need to go to the bathroom with every fiber of his being. Please, somebody get me out of here. In an instant, the door before Naruto was blasted off its hinges and crashing somewhere else entirely. The power returned, and the light had never been more welcoming. He raised his head and stared ahead. Right in front of him stood a woman with the most beautiful pair of chocolate eyes. His breath hitched and struggled to press forth from his throat. The thought that this woman may be here to kill him, like the many others, hadn't even crossed his mind when he saw the pureness in her eyes. Her expression, clothed in a blanket of flawless skin, was soft and welcoming, like that of a mother seeing her son for the very first time. Naruto. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.